All right, welcome back, Inebri-Arts. This is Andy of the Inebri-Art podcast. We are back again at the Craft Beer Cellar on Main Street in Plymouth. If you're in Plymouth and you're looking for beer, this is the place to go. They have everything from everywhere, all of the country and overseas too. So we do art shows a couple times a year, and 2 years ago we had someone come in and clean sweep, walk away with everything, drop the mic, the whole story. And so we brought him in today. Stewart Adam, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks.
And the best part was at the end, you're like, I've only been painting like 3 years. So you are a painter, but also in a previous life, a sound engineer. Is that the best way to describe
still
it?
am.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Audio engineer for most of my adult life.
So how does one connect with the other?
Wow. How did I go from one to the other?
Yeah.
Couple, 3 years, more than that, 5 years ago, I started having back problems. I literally had to stop work. I was doing location sound for film and video, TV commercials or whatever. And
Is that from holding like the boom mic up over your head?
And just woke up one day with this excruciating backache, and I just had to stop. And it went on for a year, and 9 months into it, I was in the basement, and my wife says, "Oh, you got to get out of the house and do something." So she made me get up.
So you were irritating her. Yeah.
And I painted like 25 years ago for 6 months, but just stopped.
Yeah.
So but I always had an appreciation for art. So I decided to take some art classes and took it from there.
And you work in oils, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Strictly oils.
And you have a very kind of an impressionistic feel to your work. Is
that atmospheric impressionism, I guess.
By design, or is that just how you paint?
I think it's a little both. I have appreciation for it, but it's also a way I see things, I guess.
You just hung a show, was it 3 months ago, at True Grit Gallery in Middleborough?
Yeah, that was last November. Went pretty well. I think over the month I sold 4 paintings.
Nice.
So,
was that your first solo show?
That was the first show. Yeah.
Were you fairly comfortable with that, or were there
It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I mean, they gave me a while to gear up for it, but I wasn't even sure if I was going to have enough pieces to show in at the time.
How many pieces did you have?
I wound up with about 35 there.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
How much time did you have to make 35 pieces?
Well, I had some that I know that were ready,
from before, yeah.
But I probably put in 20 that I over the course of 8 months leading up to it.
Wow, that's pretty prolific.
Yeah. But like the last 3 months, I probably painted 2. I'm less prolific in the winter time for some reason.
Really? I feel like you'd be more prolific if you're home and.
Yeah, I know. It's just I like to go out and get out.
Yeah.
And I don't like the cold.
No. Do you do a lot of kind of on-site? You don't. I mean,
plein air type work.
Yeah.
I like doing that.
Do you? I don't remember you doing a lot of landscapes. I mean, some. I've seen some. Yeah.
Maybe about half of them are half of landscapes.
And when you don't use landscapes, do you find like reference photos? Like, how do you come up with your ideas?
What I do a lot of times is I do use photos as a reference, but I skim through Instagram. That's usually there's 3 pictures wide.
Yep.
And I scroll pretty fast through them, and if I see something that pops out at me, they'll track me to something.
Oh, nice. So do you kind of always see yourself like working in oils, or are you kind of more? Do you kind of venture out every once in a while?
I've been doing some experiments with oils and doing sort of an overlay with luminescent watercolor.
Oh, that's weird.
It gives it sort of a 3-dimensional. If you look at it different angles, it sort of has a little bit of a glow here and there.
Huh.
It's kind of cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe you'll put one of those in our upcoming show.
Maybe I will. Might get X-rated though.
Our show?
No, my painting.
Well, either way. So, subject matter, that's kind of brings it up, is how do you pick your... I mean, you kind of is there like a subject matter that you gear towards? Like, because you've done some amazing paintings of people.
Oh, thank you. There's no real hardcore subject matter. I see a lot of artists, and sometimes they do waves on a beach, and that's literally all they do. They do hundreds of them. And they get them very good at them, and for some reason they sell a lot. But I'm not tied down to one particular subject matter.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get more into figurative type stuff, a little more contemporary work, but I'm still in the beginning stages.
You did one of a motorcycle that you hung 2 years ago with us, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah, that got sold last summer.
Son of a bitch.
Someone in Pembroke bought it through True Grit.
And so, being an audio engineer, is that something you went to school for? How did you get involved in that?
When I was high school, I was in the high school band playing saxophone. And get out. Went to college for a little less than a semester, and I felt lost. But I always had an interest in music, and I had friends that worked at a music store downtown. And I went out and hung there, and then eventually I, worked for a few local bands, just doing some of the roadie stuff. Then I heard about a course in Boston. I was at the old Intermediate Studios, which later became Synchro Sound, that the Cars owned.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and that Intermediate Studio was like the first or second 16-track studio in the world.
Yeah,
and so it was like a one night a week for 10 weeks. And it was a really rudimentary job, but then I got my first job in a recording studio about 2 or 3 years later, doing tape duplication, and from there I went on to a company called Fedco Audio. We did live remote recordings for King Biscuit Flower Hour, live TV broadcasts for the Tony Awards, things like that.
Oh, no kidding.
Did the King Biscuit Flower Hour. I did Aerosmith, Roxy Music, people like that. I should have brought my resume, but
oh, we're not gonna you can say whatever you want. We're not gonna,
somebody's out there.
So there's kind of like a lot of on the job, just kind of learn as you go.
Yeah. I mean, these days there's so many every school in the world is giving some sort of audio video production courses and get a degree in it, whatever.
Now, do you feel that was a better way to learn, or just a better way for you to learn?
There's a better way for me to learn. I've never been a good student.
Yeah, and so it's just
like doing studying and doing homework.
So it's kind of the more that you felt like you're actually doing something opposed to like a project.
Well, depending on the school, a lot of kids can come out with really good background. Everything has shifted. Back in the 70s, there wasn't that many people into it, but now you have incredibly musicians who are 15 or 16 years old.
Oh yeah, sure.
And then they go into college and they just explode.
Yeah, with
talent. But back then, it just wasn't that way. So I guess I wish. In some ways, I wish I had a more technical background, but somehow I managed to make a living at it.
Yeah, and so if you were a young person, say today, do you think you'd be more apt to stay in school because do you think the schools are more? I mean, just as my kids even go through high school, like they talk about classes, and I'm like, oh, like my son's taking a forensics class.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, that's crazy. Like I can't even, like, we never had classes like that. Do you think that it would be easier to stay in school with more classes that were directed towards your interest?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, if you want to get into the audio business, maybe on the music side, if you want to be a producer or engineer, you really have to know your music theory.
Yeah.
And I don't have that type of background. I mean, I played in the high school band, but I forgot everything I ever learned.
Oh my God, yeah, I played sax as well, and my son started playing sax when he was little. He's not little anymore. He still plays. And when he first picked it up, he's like, "Oh, you can teach me." And I'm like, "Oh no, because I can't read music anymore." It's weird how it just like evaporates somehow.
And I've always had an eye vision problem, and I always had problem reading the charts when I was in the band.
Yeah.
So I learned to play by ear.
Oh, no kidding.
So
and you can't teach that, really.
I can't. I mean, I get pretty good pitch. I can tell when somebody's off, but trying to write charts or anything like that, it's like not for me.
Right. Yeah, see, I was more like visually, I'd memorize kind of like what each note felt like where your hands were, but like I couldn't be like, oh, well, that's a C, that's a D. Like,
right.
Mine was more visual. Do you prefer to record music, or like what was kind of like your favorite gig?
Jeez. That's a tough one. I worked on a few albums. I worked on a Joan Armatrading album. That was one of my favorite. Her producer was Glyn Johns.
Yeah.
And he produced The Who and Led Zeppelin.
Oh, wow.
So I got, probably the days when I was working for Fedco Audio, I get to work with some producers and engineers who are pretty famous and get to see how they work.
Did you get to kind of pick their brain and hear all kinds of crazy stories?
Yeah. Like Glyn Johns, I had to wear we were in a remote truck, and I had to wear ear protection because he liked it so loud. It was just painfully loud.
In the truck?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
You'd think that would screw up his hearing? Or do you think it was he needed it loud?
No, this was painfully loud.
Yeah.
It probably did screw up his hearing.
Do you feel... I feel like that was definitely a thing in the 70s and 80s where people really did damage to the hearing. Do you feel like nowadays there's more precaution? Do you think?
There's probably a little more caution, but...
or is rock and roll and they do what they want?
Yeah, I still like to go out and see live music, but when you're standing a foot from somebody and you really have to strain to hear them, it's like I just don't enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, you're picking up half the words sometimes,
or you're saying something inappropriate or personal, and music cuts out, and you're screaming it across the room. You're like, oh man, it's always at the worst time. So you said you've worked on commercials and stuff.
Yeah, most of my work in film production was mostly commercials and corporate work. Did a few days here and there in feature work, but I never liked that lifestyle. Feature work, it's 12 to 16 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And I like to be home at 5 or 6, 7
So commercial work is more 9 to 5?
8 to 6. It's not these crazy hours of 16, 18-hour days.
Did you work on any noteworthy film that we would know?
Actually, when I was working for Fedco Audio, I worked on the No Nukes film. It was a live concert against the nuclear power.
Oh, okay.
Bruce Springsteen, people like that in it. I worked on the outdoor concert that was right beside the World Trade Center.
Oh, no kidding. I feel like outdoor audio has to be excruciating, depending on... Well, one of the perfect examples is... I'm a big fan of movies, and like I loved when DVDs became big because they had the commentary tracks.
Yeah.
And I remember in the original Ghostbusters, Ivan Reitman's talking about there's a scene where it's just Bill Murray and oh my god, blanking on her name, lead actress in Alien, Sigourney Weaver. Thank you. I knew that. I didn't look it up. It just came to me. We're talking, standing beside a fountain, and the sound in this big, like, open, like, courtyard area, and the sound guy's just like, I have to be shitting me. Like, do they ever ask for input? Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, is this a good spot, not a good spot?
Yeah. Usually before they begin a project, they'll go on a location scout, and a few times I've been out on them where they see if there's going to be sound problems. But a lot of times I just show up and they just have to deal with it.
Yeah. And is there a lot of times that you have to dub it later?
You try not to, but especially in the commercial world, but it does get done.
Yeah. Is it just a cost thing, or like why would they?
Well, in sci-fi programs, a lot of it's dubbed. Probably like in the Star Wars, a lot of that type of stuff.
I mean, there's not even the same people saying it. Yeah,
it's like 80% of that stuff was probably dubbed in later.
No kidding.
Because they just have all this machinery making things work in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that. But on feature films, it all depends on your location.
Yeah. What is kind of like, is there one part of it? I mean, obviously you enjoyed it. You've worked it your whole life. But is there like one part of audio engineering that just, you're like, oh, I hate editing out the ums that Andy says in every episode. Wham, 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 wham.
Right.
You're welcome.
Is there one thing I enjoy?
Or is there one thing that you don't enjoy?
When I was working in film, I basically recorded whatever the dialogue was, the actor speaking in front of a camera. But a lot of time they do B-roll of somebody typing
hands or something, yeah.
And I used to get so bored. Let's hurry up, let's go on to more stuff, and I get tired of waiting.
Yeah. Is it because that you didn't actively have something to do? Or
Yeah.
Is it, yeah. I've heard that kind of like there's a lot of film production that is waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting for this guy to turn this light on, or waiting for,
right,
this union guy to move that truck. Or,
well, in a feature film, they might, in a decent budget film where they have 2 or 3 months, they might shoot a minute a day, but they're working 12, 14 hours to get to that point.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you want people to be like, how does this cost like $100 million?
Right.
And be like, it's a 14-hour day. You have to pay everyone for that time.
Right.
Then you have to feed them, and
Yeah, you got to feed them, for God's sake.
Craft services. I just want to eat from craft services one time. And so we've talked recently. You still do audio engineering.
Yeah, I have a studio in my house.
And you were, I think last time we talked, you were doing some sort of digital transfer of some files for like a museum. Am I remembering that correctly, or am I butchering that?
You're close. I have
I'll take close.
I have a few regular clients, like Harvard University and Brown University, and they have large archives of research projects or oral histories, and they'll send me 100 or 1,000 tapes at a time, and I'll spend 2 weeks to 2 months transferring it all.
So how much of that do you actually have to listen to?
I'd be glad to listen to it one tape at a time in real time, but they wouldn't be glad to pay me for that. So I do.
So how do you do that?
I stream. I have, if it's on cassettes, I have 8 cassette recorders. And I load all the cassettes up, put them into a multi-track format, like using. Well, I use Cubase or Reaper, similar to Pro Tools, and I'll just record 8 stereo tracks and run all the cassettes at the same time, and then I go back in, trim them, take off all the blank audio, and just generate files for each cassette.
So you're not like really
sitting
check and listening. You kind of spot check here and there.
Yeah, and I can actually, after you do it a while, I can sort of listen to all 8 of them running simultaneous, and I said, there's some noise in there, and I can go back and solo the individual track. And
I just feel like that would be noise.
It is. But sometimes I have reel-to-reels, and they'll send you a reel, and I'll change speed halfway through it, and I'd be transferring for 3 reels at a time, and then I hear something change, and I go in, stop the reel, back it up, keep it, change the speed, and let it go. So it's like,
can you comprehend what they're saying? Like, really,
you get used to it. It's you just learn.
Yeah.
It's like people say you're in audio, you must have golden ears. It's as long anybody with good rational understanding can learn this stuff.
Sure. I mean, you develop skills as you go. Yeah.
You learn to use your senses. It's like in painting or hearing. You just learn how to use it.
Yeah.
It takes time, but...
Do you feel there's any skill crossover? Like, is there one thing that serves you in painting that serves you in audio? Because, I mean, that's completely, obviously... would seem like it would.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably a correlation. I haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah. even just kind of a mindset? Like, we were talking with the previous guest, because we record these two at a time, about how when he paints, he says he kind of gets into like the zone where he said he hears like an audible hum that kind of like he knows he's in that zone. Do you feel kind of like, and when I draw, I get very kind of like relaxed and almost zen, my brain kind of shuts down. Do you feel kind of a similar feeling when you paint as when you work on audio?
Well, that's a tough one.
I'm not supposed to ask the easy questions.
I know. I guess I do get in the zone, but I don't know if I've been painting a lot enough to really feel it.
Yeah. So when you paint, are you more geared in and focused on what you're doing and kind of like really aware of every step?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say, well, what type of music you listen to when you're painting? And, I listen to classic rock or whatever, but research has been done, and they say most people paint better when they're not listening to any music because the visual focus is all on the painting, and they erase the background.
I'm trying to think of like there's anything that like I feel like I listen to music when I draw. I don't know. I'm gonna have to like.
Yeah,
pay more
I
attention
turn it
to
up
that.
and
yeah, I feel like
vibe to it.
that's. I don't know. I feel like it adds to it.
Yeah.
Do you have kind of a process when you paint? Like, do you kind of have like a step-by-step procedure, like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, brain. I made a reference earlier to athletes who are kind of superstitious, and like I know some, I'm a hockey fan, so like some hockey players insist they're the last guy on the ice, or before they play, they like they hit the goalie on all the pads, and do you have kind of like a process that gets you in the mindset before you paint?
Not really. Not leading up to it.
Yeah.
Usually, like I say, if I'm scanning pictures, I might get an idea for a series of things. Like now I've been looking at old grain mills from the Midwest or the West.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be beside a railroad track. So,
and with Pinterest, you can kind of go in and look at like photos.
Right. And so I've been thinking about that, but the process for me, once I get to that process, is I used to put a lot of paint on and just rush into it. Now I do like a thin undercoat, and then once I get the basic structure dimensions down, then I start adding more layers of paint on top of that. So, sometimes I'll just paint for an hour or two, just getting a basic undercoat, might let it dry for a few days and come back and start adding the stuff that makes it look pretty.
So one thing that I've talked to a lot of artists, and I've seen some paintings and drawings go south quickly, is that moment of when is it done, when do you stop, and how do you get those two things to line up?
Yeah, it's always a tough one.
Is there something that you do to kind of spot check and be like, am I done? Like, do you bring your wife in and be like, look at this? And you kind of
she checks it out a lot. Yeah. She has her comments.
She has her comments. That doesn't necessarily sound like a good thing.
No, eventually I just get to a point where I don't know what else to do with this. And that's the end.
And that's the end. Do you... the classic thing is you see like artists like stand back and look at their work. I know some who will take their glasses off.
Yeah, you always have to. I don't step back enough.
Yeah,
because when you're working up close, like a foot, and you're looking at your values of lights and darks.
Yeah,
and then you go back and look at it from 10 feet away. It's like, oh my God, this looks terrible.
Yeah.
So you have to step back a lot.
It's one of those things we used to teach those kind of bar paint night things.
Mm-hmm.
And people would be like, I hate this. And you'd be like, stand up. And they'd be like, what? You'd be like, stand up. And I'm like, okay. And then you make them like walk to the side of the room, and they're like, look at it, and like, oh, it looks totally different. And
Yeah,
like, because you're not sitting on top of it, you know.
Well, I took a art workshop in December with this guy named Charlie Hunter, who's a plein air artist, studio artist also, but he does mostly sepia, browns, and he says you have to step back and let the painting talk to you.
Yeah, yeah. Something that I found that worked for me and has had some really interesting results is it's something, and I don't know if it's just like the difference between seeing it on a screen versus in real life. Sometimes I'll take a picture and then I'll look at the picture instead of looking like a picture on my phone, and then instead of looking at the piece itself, look at the picture, and I'll notice things that I didn't notice before.
Yeah, I've heard some people do that.
Yeah,
a lot of times the people, if they'll take the painting and turn it upside down and step back.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
So, was there an artist that inspired you to paint, like, or a particular artist that like, kind of lent you towards a style of painting, or?
I like some of the classics, like Monet. There's some contemporary artists like Jeremy Mann, who's does a lot of cityscapes. It's pretty wild stuff. He works with rollers and scrapers and really wild stuff.
Jeremy Mann, I can check that out.
There's a documentary called Solitary Man. Shows him at work. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love when people take kind of a very non-traditional way of creating art. So like a roller would be really interesting. Are they large pieces, or?
He goes from small, like 11 by 17, up to.
How do you paint an 11 by 17 with a roller?
Small rollers, but he does big, large. 5 foot tall by whatever wide, and he makes a lot of money out of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever intend to? Like I talk to a lot of young artists, Stewart, and I don't mean that to, sound backhanded, but, a lot of them are like, I want to make this my living. You have a career, and, you're not again, if this is rude, I apologize. You're not at the age where you're looking to start a career. But, I mean, do you look at this as a way to, like, supplement your income, or is it just...
Yeah, it supplements.
Yeah.
If I sold a few more, I'd be happy. But I enjoy it. I like, especially going out plein air painting. Art's a pretty solitary type of endeavor, I think, in general.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm out in the woods painting a tree or whatever, I enjoy my time.
Do you like that kind of solid? What was the word you used?
Solitary
aspect of it, where you kind of get is it to get away?
Yeah, yeah. I think I've always been that way.
Yeah. Because it's one of the things that kind of started Inebri-Art was a way to get artists together, to kind of get them out from behind their easels and drawing boards, and trade ideas that way. Do you think do you get a lot of ideas from meeting other artists?
I do. I like to watch other people. And actually, tomorrow night I'm going to someplace in Concord, and they're having a person who she makes her living selling paintings of donuts.
Of donuts?
Very large ones.
Really?
For big inner city lofts type stuff. And so I want to find out what she's about.
That's that's interesting. I mean,
I can't remember her name.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, people can Google donut artist. I feel like that's going to come up. There can't be that many of them. Research?
Yeah.
Fish will get on that. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I will never, ever give anyone a hard time about forgetting someone's name.
Yeah.
If you've listened to this podcast at all, you know it is not my strong suit. And it's where art is visual. Like, I'm a very visual person. Names? That's why I go with nicknames. I can remember nicknames because they're silly or short.
I've always been terrible at names.
That's just
sometimes when I see... I'll remember somebody, but when I see them out of context, like if I used to work with them, then I meet them in a bar, it's like, I know you, but I can't remember your name.
Yeah, I had that. So I used to live in East Bridgewater, and we lived right down the street from this bar. It used to be called Trackside. It was the Nutty Irishman when I lived there. And there's like the bar area, and then there's a long corridor down to the men's room. And I'm walking down towards the men's room, and this dude's walking towards me, and we kind of like get to that, conversation area. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? He's like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, where do I know you from? And he's like, I have no idea. It took us the rest of the night to realize that when I was a kid, I worked at Stop and Shop, and he was a regular.
Oh, wow.
And that's how we knew. But, like, instantly we knew each other,
Yeah.
and then couldn't figure out how. And it happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Terrible with names. And, maybe it's a visual thing. Like,
Yeah,
'cause I don't know. How we doing over there, Research Donut Artist? Yeah, get your mic off of mute. There we go.
Sorry.
Oh, God.
Not planning on talking. God damn it, Andy. That's why I
beer's
don't
flying.
talk. I believe the name is Emily Eveleth.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, that sounds
Sure,
right.
we'll
Sure,
go
we'll
with
go with that. Does she
Okay.
paint donuts?
Yes.
All right. Do they look delicious?
Sure.
Okay. Are you? Does kind of that weird offbeat art kind of attract you? Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
I don't know. Donuts itself don't. I just want to find out what she's about.
Yeah. And just kind of.
Yeah. I mean, she sells them for a lot of money, so I'm like,
I can't imagine.
how many
like,
can you sell?
you think, okay, so like the 100 donut shops in the country have a painting.
Right.
Now what? Not Dunkin' Donuts. They're not going to buy a painting. So, what do you have lined up? Do you have other shows lined up? Or
I have no shows at the moment.
other than the Inebri-Art art
Yeah.
show at Dirty Water Distillery, April 27th,
I'll keep that in
28th.
mind.
27th,
I'll
28th?
try to
Does
bring
that
one
sound
of my
right?
pornographic ones in.
Sure. They have to be 1X. They can't be triple X. Is there a difference? I'm not going to make you research.
There's
You just
two
go-
X's difference.
All right. Fish just made a mess doing some research. And
It's all right.
there was one episode he put me on mute and I couldn't talk. Yeah, it's don't do that. So how have you experienced specifically in Plymouth our community? I was saying the other day to someone, if you want to be on some sort of committee, move to Plymouth, because I was asked yesterday to be on a board or committee of some kind. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I want to do.
Right.
But how's your experience been in the art world in Plymouth?
I've had a pretty good time. I'm not necessarily a group type person, so I haven't really delved into it a lot. But
Yeah.
It seems to be growing. I mean, when I moved here in '95, and downtown, there was 3 or 4 restaurants, maybe, like the Colonial and whatever.
The Colonial.
Look at what's down there now. All the different restaurants, and so it's Plymouth has changed a lot in the last 25 years or so.
So do you kind of prefer to kind of stay on the peripheral and just kind of, occasionally put your artwork in? And
For now, I'm happy with that.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those, I know a lot of artists that want to make a living at art, but they're kind of that, I don't know if antisocial is the right word, introvert. It's probably a better word.
Yeah.
So it's hard for them to put their work out and market it. Have you found that galleries are the best way to kind of move your art, or have you sold any online? Or?
I've just updated my website,
Yeah,
StewartAdamFineArt.com.
there we go.
STEWART.
That was going to be my next question, where people can go, but that's cool.
But someone saw a painting I did on Instagram, and they contacted me through Instagram and bought it
Yeah.
based on a picture, and I gave him the price, and he didn't squawk, and I was like, oh my God. I'm not as prolific as I'd like to be,
Yeah.
so if I can build up my repertoire, I'd probably push it a little harder.
Yeah. Now, do you or have you ever considered selling prints of your art?
Not really.
Yeah. Is there a specific? Is it just not been a thought, or?
It just hasn't been a thought.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say they don't, and some people do. I don't know. I just haven't really got around to it.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So,
if I had more demand for my oil art,
yeah,
maybe I would. But just
what about a
haven't thought
print of the motorcycle? But no, I think your work's great.
Thank you.
I'm always looking forward. Anytime you put stuff into our show, it's one of the things that I look forward to seeing what you come up with.
Right.
Obviously, because we picked you as first place winner before. Everyone else voted for you too.
Well, that was the first and only time.
Yeah.
I'm saving myself for this spring.
Yeah, nice. April 27th and 28th, the Dirty Water Distillery, part of Art Week.
You didn't have one though this fall, did you?
We didn't have a fall one this year. Fall was kind of a fall into 2018 sucked ass. I'm just gonna and the tail end of it was kind of the worst. So I think we'll do a fall one again this year. We're definitely doing the spring one because that's pretty much already in the works. So it's one of those things. Working full time and trying to run Inebri-Art every once in a while, when life gets hard, you have to be like, all right, I got to just step back a little bit and not stop things, but things are going to slip by the wayside. And, that's okay. We'll just pick up the ball and keep running. So, so we want to thank you for coming to all. I mean, you've been coming to our stuff for quite a while now. It feels like.
I haven't been to the drawing much. I've been going to somewhere else on Monday nights.
How dare you? Wait, to draw?
Yeah. Paint. Long pose painting.
Oh, really? All right. Well, we also do them on Wednesday nights.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right. Third Wednesday of every month at the New World Tavern, $8 cover charge. Well, we're not going to let you plug the competition.
It's all right.
No, but we you're always supportive of our stuff, and we think your art's great. So why don't we give that website again?
It's Stewart Adam Fine Art, STEWARTADAM Fine Art.
And I assume there's contact information if people want to ask questions or purchase your artwork there.
That's for sure.
And as always, thanks for coming down, talking to us. This was kind of like a last minute. We had an available spot. I'm like, hey,
No
man.
problem.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And we look forward to more greatness. Sweep another competition.
I'll do my best.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for checking out the podcast. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts on the Inebri-Art Podcast Network. There's the Bar Talk. There's Old Colony Cast. There's, of course, the Inebri-Art Podcast. And our latest, Retro Redoctopus, a kind of nerd genre podcast that you can check out now, all available on our website at inebri-art.com. And pretty much available everywhere that podcasts are available, on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all those things. And if you don't see it where you're looking, let us know. We'll try to get onto that as well. And you can also email us at inebriart@yahoo.com with your questions, complaints, and suggestions. And also, if you could take the time to rate and review us on iTunes, that would be phenomenal. That helps us get more exposure and bring more of these great podcasts to your ears. And thanks again for listening.